Hi, I'm Reece Barclay.
And I'm Lucy Charles-Barclay, and you are listening to the MX Endurance Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by my good friend, the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the sexiest voice in triathlon, Mr. James Bale. Jimbo, how you going, mate?
Yeah, I'm well, mate. I'm well. It's been a busy week this week. I don't know whether I told you, but I've started learning French, so I had my first French lesson.
Parlez-vous français?
Yeah, I'm getting there. So that was an addition to my week that isn't normally there, but it was good fun.
Well, the good news is at least you know one word in French.
Yeah.
What's the word for shepherd, mate? People forget the origin of that nickname. Berger or something, isn't it? Something like that.
How are you, man? How are the legs? You've been on a training camp, eh?
Yeah, mate. I got back from a training camp last night, or yesterday. 5 days down in the snow mountains of Australia's highest part of Australia. Did 5 days of like rock solid training, train the house down. It was actually fantastic. I was saying, I think to you offline, like it's been so long since we've had races that I've not really had the opportunity to benchmark myself against anything, and going down and doing the same train that this same camp that I do every year with my mate Charlie. Man, I was crushing everything. PBs up every climb. It was great. So going into Dubai in a few weeks now, it's starting to get really exciting. So yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. But look, nobody really cares about us, James Bale. They don't listen to this podcast for Tim and James chat. They listen for our hot takes. Before we always get to the hot takes, we say this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by four-time world champion Chris McCormack. Jimbo, what's something you like about the aforementioned MX Endurance?
It's the enthusiasm, man, that we're seeing for the St. George World Championships camp that we're doing in May. So we've had 10 people register and sign up already, and it's rolling, man, isn't it? You've got all kind. I know that you're before we were recording, you were bubbling with all manner of ideas and stuff that you were going to do and we were going to do while we're out there. And yeah, man, that is a very key point of excitement for me within MX Endurance at the moment, is the opportunity to be at the World Championships in a different place that is Kona.
I've also started reaching out to pro athletes about doing interviews with us in the week to lead up, and I don't think anybody said no to me yet. And I was saying to I was like, we're coming after Bob Babbitt. We're coming after you, Bob. Not really.
Yeah,
but
going down, Bob.
Yeah, you're going down, Bob. But in all seriousness, it's going to be great. I think the plan is we're going to try to do at least, in the week, days leading up to the race. We don't want to bother people too close. Maybe we'll get some cool people on that aren't racing. But we'll try to do an interview or something every single day, and then all the people on the camp will be able to come in and participate, which will be great. I'm looking forward to it, and again, just to be able to get back to a big race is going to be epic, mate. So really looking forward to it. Now we have got a big interview this week. People are probably tuning into this podcast for the first time and got confused because we were talking about French and stuff that they don't care about. But we are.
And I'm wearing a cardigan.
And you're wearing a cardigan. That was the first thing I said to you when we started recording. Not a scarf this time, unfortunately. That's one of your signatures. But we obviously have the triathlon power couple, Reece and Lucy Charles-Barclay, on the podcast this week. I interviewed them last night. It is fantastic. We'll drop that in a little bit later. But for our new listeners, because I know the last time we had Lucy on, it was one of our most downloaded episodes ever. So I'm guessing there might be a bit of a boost again. We're going to go through the news first. And you can tell that James Bale has put together the doc this week for us, because it is a very Team GB / Brownlee heavy.
It was where the news was, bro. I can't dictate where the news lies each week.
I thought you made the news, James Bale. I was waiting to see something about James Bale announces a new sponsor or gets a new cardigan or something. I don't know. But the first piece of news comes from Tri247 John Levinson. That is the fact that Alistair and Jonny Brownlee are to ride BMC bikes for the next 3 years. As I said, they've got a new bike sponsor, further cementing their connections to the sport. The Leeds-based duo will be riding BMC bikes moving forward. The news was released on Wednesday alongside confirmation of the continued title sponsorship and support of the BMC Pro Triathlon team, powered by 2XU. What a gobful. BMC was a founding partner of that team back in 2014. There is further British interest there, of course, courtesy of the rapidly improving Kat Matthews, friend of the podcast, and she is on that international squad moving forward. But the Brownlees. The brothers will be following dual paths in the sport initially, with perhaps a few head-to-heads along the way to add into the mix. Following his 3 months of hell in 2021, when injuries wrecked any chance he had of bidding for a fourth Olympic game performance, Aleister is set to be focused on middle and long distance racing for the remainder of his career. In the first half of the season, he has the Ironman World Championships in St. George, followed by Sub-7 as his primary focus. For Jonny, Tokyo 2020 and his massive performance in Japan last year have impacted his plans to an extent. With his selection confirmed on Tuesday for the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham and a longer-term aim of securing another Olympic medal in Paris, Jonny is not yet ready to close the door fully to the short course world. He did race his first middle distance event in 2021, 6th at Ironman Cassius, where Magnus beat him. Good on you, Magnus. And while it would be no surprise to see him do so again at some point during 2022, he'll likely be seen most of his racing from aboard the BMC Time Machine Road 01. Dave Zurcher, CEO of BMC Switzerland, said BMC is proud to play a pivotal part on the world triathlon stage. Over the past decade, we have been able to celebrate major success with our athletes and are looking forward to stepping up our commitment to the triathlon discipline while welcoming two absolute legends to the BMC family. Jimbo, there's a lot to unpack with this article. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think, we've been wondering, haven't we, for a while, where the bike sponsorship was gonna end up with the Brownlees, because we heard on the grapevine sometime before this that they weren't with Scott anymore. Obviously, they moved.
Source.
Yeah,
they
moved from Boardman Bikes in 2017 to Scott. They've been with Scott since 2017, and we knew that they were going to be moving on, but we didn't know where they were going to be moving to. It's interesting, really, because BMC, I think the interesting element for this is that BMC obviously have their pro team with 2XU, and the implications of bringing the Brownlee brothers on as pretty much a head sort of sponsorship team of athletes. Yeah. Is that going to impact the BMC's bottom line, the pro team's bottom line? Presumably not. Presumably that deal was done, alongside this. But it's big hitters, mate, and they command big money.
One of the things, this again, I actually found out about this, as you said, we knew that they were moving, but I found out that it was BMC through MX. I think it was Lee Shelvis who posted this. And one of the discussions we've been having going on about this is, again, sort of behind the scenes, we had a rough idea what they were getting paid by Scott. We'd heard whispers. And the question was, is that value the same now? And I've been shocked to see in the last, not just Brownlees, but Yarn for Dinner, a lot of people, how the conversation seems to have moved on from them. And I was discussing with people like, are the Brownlees still that super high value athlete to sponsor? And I don't know. I think they are probably. I think maybe one of their problems is that maybe need to work on their social media a little bit more and maybe do a little bit more work that way. But what do you think about that?
I was thinking about this morning while I was putting these notes together. Aleister doesn't really engage with promoting his sponsors in a way that other athletes tend to. Or some athletes, some of the better ones, some of the better at doing that ones do. I think he's a double gold medalist. He's one of the most prolific racers of his generation and one of the most talented and successful. So he's had that to lean on of late, but he's had, slightly leaner than previous years, and perhaps that started to take a toll because he's not out there working for his sponsors as he maybe should be. But I think I definitely think the value may have dropped slightly, but we're not on the inside of that deal, so who knows? Yeah, exactly. I still think for a brand to have the Brownlee brothers attached to it is very important, and I think the next few years will play out as to how important that is, because we could be about to see Alistair Brownlee take on and succeed over the long distance, while Jonny does something incredible at the Commonwealth Games and then bounds towards Paris 2024 and medals again and becomes, even more so the most decorated Olympic triathlete of all time. So I think there's a gap now where we could see that value really fade if those two things don't happen. But if they do, then that value is worth it.
I'm also, it's an interesting situation, something that I've sort of not really realized, but for the first time, almost since I've been in the sport, Alistair Brownlee isn't the reigning world Olympic champion anymore. Like, it's the first time in 9 years. So I think that, and this is sort of what I was, I guess, touching on. I definitely think that they've got this brand power, this star power, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, suddenly he doesn't have the title. Yes, he's got the 2 Olympic gold medals, and like nobody can ever take that away from him. But one thing we've discussed a lot is that triathlon has a very short memory, and you've got the new hotness in town at the moment with Christian Blumenfeld and Gustav doing what they're doing. Like, this isn't we're not talking about $1 billion sport here. We're talking about it. I was talking to somebody today, and I was saying triathlon always reminds me a bit of like like the Amazon River full of piranhas. And anytime anybody drops a little bit of meat on a bone, the piranhas go in and ravage it. And that's sort of how I see the triathlon commercial scene a little bit. So yeah, I'm there's a lot. Like I said, there's a lot. The stuff around Jonny we're going to go into the next article, and I'm just happy to see Ali. Firstly, sounds like he's going to be at St. George, which again is another reason to get excited about that race. We know that Ali has struggled in the heat traditionally, so the fact that this is going to be a race that should have better conditions. I've heard the swim. I think Sky Monch was telling me it's going to be like 16 degrees Celsius in the water or something at St. George in May. It could suit Ali Brownlee. We could see Ali Brownlee come out and absolutely destroy things, and he's somebody that nobody's talking about, mate. Like, nobody is talking about Ali Brownlee.
That goes to your point about triathlon having a short memory, isn't it?
Yeah.
No one's talking about him.
Let's keep talking about the Brownlees, because it's not just the Brownlee. It is this article's from Tri 24/7 Jonathan Turner, and that is the fact that Jonathan Brownlee seems to have made a bit of a change in his plans for the future. We heard last year, I think, that Jonny was ready to start focusing on middle distance racing. But it says, while the Commonwealth Games are the main aim for Jonny in 2022, the Paris Olympics in 2024 are also now very much a focus. He famously said, Olympics, completed it in the immediate aftermath of striking gold in the mixed relay in Tokyo. He also clocked the fastest relay leg in Tokyo, as well as the quickest run, and proved to be a catalyst for a rethink for him. He said, I had a change of heart after that relay in Tokyo, he confirmed. And what also changed was taking a little time to reflect on his achievements, not something he's often done during his glittering career. Speaking after being one of the first 4 names to be announced for Team England's Commonwealth Games squad, he said, I realised that over my career, I've not done a very good job of letting my achievements sink in. I very quickly move on to the next goal. But as you get older, guys take this in. He's talking to Alex and Georgia and Sophie on the call. You learn to appreciate the good times a bit more. I've tried to take a step back and let my body recharge. I did do the Super League afterwards, which I really enjoyed. But up to Christmas, I had the goal of relaxing a bit. But I'm not very good at that. I had plans of going on ski trips and all sorts, but none of that happened as I very quickly got back into my routine. But I do feel I've hit the reset button and I'm ready to go again. And the next 6 months, we'll see a mix of races with the main aim of Commonwealth Games, but an aligned focus of keeping an eye on Paris 2024. He said, I want to do another 70.3. It's given me something else to focus on during winter training, maybe something like Challenge Gran Canaria in April, and then switch back to short course racing and mix it up between a few World Cups. Because if there's one thing I realized about last year, it's that there's some unbelievable racing out there, which I just haven't had the chance to do. Racing in Sardinia and that kind of thing. And then obviously WTCS leads in June. So basically a 70.3, then back to short course to focus on the Commonwealth Games. So James Bell, we have Jonny Brownlee, who is looking like he's all in for Paris 2024. So he has not done with short course racing yet.
No, man, we saw him cross the line, didn't we, at the Olympics? And he famously said, yeah, Olympics completed it, mate. And we all thought that was the end of it. But it didn't take long, did it? Once the dust had settled on the Olympics for the rumours to start swirling around that Jonny was having a rethink. And I think rightly so, man. I mean, he put in the fastest time split in the relay, the fastest run leg in the relay. He then went to Super League and, he put his best foot forward as Super League and gave some damn good performances. I think he's allowing his performances to make the decisions for him rather than a preconceived idea of what age he's at, if you know what I mean. Just he's still doing it. He's still racing it. He's still fast. So yeah, get out there and have another Paris. Have another Olympics in Paris. Why not?
Do you think Tom Bishop died a little bit on the inside when he heard this? Oh, fuck's sake.
Fuck's sake. Fuck off, mate.
Give me a break, Jonny.
Every chance. But I'm excited to see him go for Paris because, Paris is nice and convenient. I'm going to be there to watch that race.
So am I. I've already booked my accommodation, mate.
Yeah. So have I. I'm staying with you and your sister.
Yeah, no worries, mate. No worries. No, I think that it makes sense to me considering what Jonny did. He was very competitive. Super League obviously got the gold in the mixed team relay in Tokyo. I do, maybe a part of me goes, is this the next Ali / sort of Vince thing where we're going to start seeing people sort of starting to dabble and not really commit to anything? Because
no, I don't think Johnny's got that mindset where he's gonna. And also, having seen what his brother did, trying to straddle the two, I don't think Johnny is going to be like, oh, I might do some long, I might do some short, and then end up getting himself injured. I think if he has a good Commonwealth Games and commits to Paris, I think his mindset will be short course all the way to Paris, and then see what happens.
Well, speaking of the Commonwealth Games, again, you put this one in the doc, and I thought maybe I'll let you lead the charge on this, as it is the English triathlon team for the Commonwealth Games has been announced, and it's another opportunity for me to say I fucking hate you and your goddamn Team England bullshit.
Yeah, so this came off the BBC Sport website. The Commonwealth Games English triathlon team. The Olympics triathlon mixed relay gold medalists Alex Yee, Jonny Brownlee and Georgia Taylor-Brown will compete for England at the 2022 Commonwealth Games alongside fellow triathlete Sophie Coldwell. They are the first athletes named for the Birmingham Games. Yee, 23, who'll be competing at his first Commonwealth Games, won the men's silver medal in Tokyo in his Olympic debut. He said, "I'm delighted to be selected. Birmingham was always a target of mine, and I can't wait to compete in a major championships at home. I know the crowd will be brilliant and give us a real advantage." Taylor-Brown will also be making her Commonwealth debut, having won silver in the individual triathlon in Tokyo and gold in the World Championships in 2020. "When I watched the London Olympics and how the crowd really got behind everyone, I thought it was quite sad that it may never happen again in my lifetime," she said. "To be able to be at the home games for the Commonwealth Games is quite incredible and something you'll cherish and relish, as the crowds will really get behind you." Coldwell, 26, competed at the 2018 Commonwealth Games, finishing 6th in the women's events. The Games, which run from the 28th of July to the 8th of August, are currently set to be held in front of full stadiums and arenas. The men's and women's triathlon races take place at Sutton Park on the 29th of July. Mate, they're getting in ahead of the game. I love this about British triathlon and England triathlon, and the fact that they go, no, we're going to back our horses, runners and riders, and this is our team, and these are who we're getting behind. We don't mess about like the Australians and leave people hanging and just like mess with people's minds.
I was under the impression, I didn't realize, so Jess Limont hasn't been picked. So
Yeah.
it's Sophie Coldwell instead of Jess.
Yeah, but I believe so. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean,
Well,
Sophie's an incredible athlete. Like that's not a slight. Again, it's one of the reasons I hate how good you bastards are, because you've got such depth. But I mean, I'm not surprised by this, to be honest. Like, yeah, you've got success, so why not keep following that success? Alex Yee, you forget how young he is, mate. Like, bloody hell, he's already got a silver and a gold.
Man, he's very young. People are getting younger and younger, eh?
The Com Games have snuck up, hey. Oh, I'm getting older. The Commonwealth Games have really snuck up, hey. Like it's this year, and I don't think anybody's even really talking about it in Australia. I think we're like, oh, that's right, that thing's on. But yeah, the Com Games. We just did the Olympics. Like, give us a bit of a breather.
Give us a moment.
It'd be good. Again, some of the athletes, because again, I know we have a lot of American listeners. The Commonwealth Games are literally the Olympics without America, basically. So it's a chance for countries like Australia to dominate, which we normally do. James Bell, I know you appreciate that. But there's still going to be some good athletes there. We got Hayden Wilde, Alex Yee, Jonny Brownlees. We said Tyler Mislachuk, Jake Birtwistle, others. So it's going to be a
it'll be a good event. I'm planning to go up and watch it because home soil and all that. So I think it'll be a fantastic event.
Well, look, I'm sure people who are tuned in for our interview are like, enough of this shit. Get to the interview. We're on the topic of British triathlon. We might as well put in 2 British triathletes. I sat down with them last night to record the interview. So we'll drop the interview in with Reece and Lucy Charles-Barclay, and we'll be back afterwards. All right. This week we are joined by 2 people who probably don't need much of an introduction. They are the powerhouse couple of triathlon behind Team Charles-Barclay. That is obviously Reece and Lucy Charles-Barclay. Lucy, welcome back to the podcast, and Reece, welcome to the podcast for the first time. How are you both going?
Yeah, pretty good. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, we're both doing well. Enjoying our January training.
You're in Lanzarote at the moment, correct?
Yeah, we've been here. Well, you've been here for 2 weeks. I've been here for 1 week. And we've had mixed weather, really. We've had a sandstorm, and the locals are saying it's the worst one they've ever seen. It's basically like Sahara desert sand blows over and cakes the whole island in dust. So we've had 1 week where we've been indoors on the turbo trainer, and then thankfully the sun has come out and the sand has gone. So this week we're heading outside.
Well, it's good you're talking about the turbo trainer, because we've all seen your impressive pain cave set up on social media, on YouTube and stuff like that. And one of the things I like is the big photos you've got on the walls. And I don't know if you know this, but I do the podcast with James Bale, a very proud British man who made the horrible mistake of racing Ironman Lanzarote in an all-white tri-suit. Now, I want to know what it's going to take for me to get a photo of James Bale plastered on the wall of your pain cave as that motivation for you. What do we have to do to get a copy of James Bale on that pain cave wall? What's it going to take?
Oh, well, a picture of James Bale in a white tri-suit.
All white tri-suit. The belly's hanging out the bottom of the shirt. It's glorious. He doesn't realize, but I've bought his race photos. He hates them. I found them and I bought the whole race. So I've got them all. And I will do we will activate our audience if it takes to get James Bale on your wall.
Maybe we should put it out to the listeners and see what would it take for us to get a big picture of James Bale. I mean, it'd be quite motivating, actually.
Could be like on the entrance doorway, couldn't it? Just, there we go.
Well, look, yeah, no, I love that. I always do this when he's not around. I always like throw shade at him and stuff because he's not here to defend himself, and he'll get cranky at me. But look, I guess a great place to start. We've obviously had you on the show before, Lucy, but we've made a point the last couple of months of trying to get duos on the podcast. We had Mikel and Gustav on last year. We had Christian and Harold, and I thought great opportunity to get, as I said, a true triathlon power couple on together. And a great place to start is about some insight into how the duo or the dynamic works between you guys. As I mean, husband, wife, training partners, coach, athlete, all that sort of stuff. Like how is that dynamic between the two of you?
Yeah, I guess the dynamic, we've always kind of had it. We met as swimmers. So, and that was, well, more than 10 years ago, back when we were swimming. And I kind of always saw Reece as kind of that coaching role. Like I always looked up to him, asked him for advice, and whatever he suggested I would try, and it always seemed to work. So we've always taken that, I guess, into our training. And we're, I guess, maybe abnormal to most couples in that we enjoy each other's company maybe most of the time or all of the time. We train with each other most of the time as well. So we definitely have a very positive way of working together. And I guess that's kind of shown by the results over the years.
Yeah, I think like back when we were swimmers, I was studying sports science, and I was just really sort of learning about applications that I thought perhaps could help Lucy and I further our swimming careers. At the time, Lucy was potentially going to qualify for the 2012 Olympics, and I would see her training every single day, and I was like learning about all these new ways to train and things like that. And I was like, oh, maybe we should try this, and maybe you should try that. And maybe got in a little bit in the way of the actual coach at the time, because some of the stuff we were doing was, arguably not favourable towards the style of swimming that Lucy needed to be doing as long distance. And I guess eventually we moved away from that coach and started doing our own thing, and you started to get some really, really good results. So yeah, from the very, very start, I was interested in helping Lucy towards furthering her athletic career. And then one thing led to another, really. We kind of fell out of love with swimming and needed something to do. We actually at the time, well, you went to go and work in a zoo. I was finishing off my degree, and we set up a coaching business, but a personal training, so nothing to do with triathlon at all. But one of the things that we always needed was something a really big goal for us to keep ourselves focused and motivated to train. And I couldn't think of anything more difficult than entering an Ironman. So we basically just randomly entered one. Can't even remember when now, 2013, something like that, which was Ironman UK. And I guess that's where it really started to me become your coach.
Yeah.
For that period of time, because I was like, okay, I've just convinced Lucy, or there was no hesitation. Lucy was just like, yeah, sure, we'll do it. We signed up, we paid the money, and then I was like, oh crap, actually, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. So I assumed the role of making sure that we were going to be both okay to do this event, and basically from there coached you all the way through up until very recently, where Dan's taken over this year. So,
I mean, that's something I did want to touch on. I mean, Dan Lorang is a name that I think most people who follow the sport will be familiar with. He's got a very, very great track record of success. What's the transition been like? How's the dynamic changed, and what sort of things have you noticed, both of you guys, since you've started working with Dan?
For me personally, I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, like, do you really want to hand over, Lucy, after all the success that you've had? Like, isn't that just going to pass all of the credit on to Dan?" And in a way, I get that argument, but it's not like that for us. Lucy made a decision that she wants to start doing some short course racing. I held my hand up and said, "Well, I have never done a short course race in my life. I don't have any experience in that. I think you'll be better served by someone else who has knowledge in that department." And of course, Dan is, a renowned coaches Jan Frodeno, Annie. He's vastly experienced in the long course stuff, which Lucy still has goals in as well. So I think it was a fairly obvious decision that we would need assistance from someone else. And to be fair, the transition couldn't have been smoother. Dan's now recently started coaching me as well, which is nice, because I've never really had someone coaching me properly before. I've always sort of just set myself training, which has been fine up until now, but now I've got someone who I'm accountable to as well. So it's been pretty smooth so far. I still do quite a lot of the day-to-day coaching, so I report back to Dan with feedback that I'm seeing from Lucy. I've got eyes and ears on all of Lucy's training sessions, so I know that sometimes, just because it's written on paper, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right thing to be doing at that time. So it's a relationship that's really quite productive, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely been really smooth. I think the nicest thing is just almost having a plan to follow that's just there, and kind of, we were very adaptable, and we still are very adaptable. If we feel that a session that's on paper isn't going to work on that day, we will adapt and change things. But it's definitely been nice to kind of wake up and know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, rather than us going, "Oh, should we do that session today, or should we do this?" It kind of just makes it a lot simpler and takes the thinking out a little bit, particularly for me, less so for Reece. He still thinks a lot about it, but makes my job easier as an athlete.
I don't necessarily want to dwell too much on last year, because I'm sure you've been asked 100,000 questions about it, but I do need to, because I think your season last year, Lucy, was just a delight for me as a fan of the sport. It just gave us so much to talk about. I know, like, we just talked about what's Lucy do. It was fantastic. It wasn't necessarily a traditional triathlon season. You did, Olympic trials, you went to arena games, you went to Leeds, you did 70.3 worlds. Like, you just did this stuff. And it was always, I mean, again, as a fan, it was fantastic. How did that unfold? Was it a spur of the decision? Were things just coming up and you're having a go, or did you sort of plan things out? Like, how did that season unfold?
Yeah, I guess it really was a bit kind of opportunities came up, and I was like, you know what, I might as well do it. After 2020, where I really hadn't raced at all, I knew I just wanted to have as many different opportunities as possible, and kind of see how much I could push myself out of my comfort zone. And I think we always were athletes in the beginning who would race quite a lot. We'd have our kind of ultimate A race, but we would also go and do smaller races and maybe do them under a lot of fatigue, not quite prepared enough, but just use them as training days for the big goal. So there were definitely times where I knew I wasn't 100% ready to go and do maybe the arena games, but I wanted to just see how I stacked up against those girls. And actually then when I did quite well, I just gained a ton of confidence, and then obviously decided to go and race in Leeds again, where I'd had a very short preparation time, but it's like, what the heck, let's just go and see what happens. And I guess since the very beginning of my career, I haven't been able to do that, because I've been like, oh, I need to go and race and I need to make sure I do well. But I was just like, you know what, this year I'm just going to see what happens. And thankfully it all kind of went pretty well. And obviously the ultimate A race was the 70.3 worlds, which could not have gone better. So it definitely was a very different year, but one I'm really proud of.
For you, Reece, being behind the scenes, was there those moments where Lucy would say, "Oh, I want to do this," and you're like, "Are you sure?" Or like, was there anything she came to you and you said no? Like, what was it like behind? Or were you just like, "You do it, darling. Whatever you want to do, go for it." Like, how was it behind the scenes?
I guess two parts really. Like the first part of the season, we were just coming out of lockdown, and it was pretty much just grab any opportunity there is, even if it's just, you know, arena games or the 1500 meters in the swimming pool, whatever, just going out there and race, because you've been locked up for a year, you've got nothing to lose. Towards the end of the year, it was a little bit more calculated, or a lot more calculated. I had a lot of concerns about Abu Dhabi, because I knew that off the back of 70.3 Worlds, the come down from that was going to be immense. There was going to be no way that you could maintain the fitness that she was at in Utah all the way through till then. So I had concerns about that, but I also knew that if you've got aspirations in short course, you need the experience. So yeah, I guess sometimes I'm like, yeah, you just go and do it. And other times I'm a little bit like, you maybe need to think about that a little bit. But ultimately it's up to Lucy. So I just support whatever she decides.
What do you think, Reece, was her best performance last year?
Well, it's hard to say. It's hard to say the 70.3 Worlds wasn't her best performance. It definitely was on paper the best performance you've ever done. But I think your biggest achievement last year was probably Leeds, given that you literally had 10 days notice. Not so much the actual swim, bike, run performances, but the fact that you literally learn how to do a quick transition, mount your bike, dismount your bike, relatively quick compared to what you've been doing recently. Not quick compared to the real short course specialists, but quick enough that you didn't get absolutely humiliated. You
certainly didn't get humiliated.
Yeah, I think that was really incredible. But yeah, best performance swim, bike, run was definitely Utah.
What do you think, Lucy? What was your best performance last year? Maybe not the best. What's the performance that maybe you're the proudest of? And it might not. I mean, the obvious answer, I think we all know it, but maybe there's something else that's special to you, or what do you think?
I think the one I'm most proud of, well, yeah, there's a few, but I think the 1500 freestyle actually really surprised myself, because I had kind of just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And I was nervous to go back into that world of swimming because I was unsure how it would be perceived by the athletes. I thought they might think, what is she doing here? Like, she does triathlon now. Why is she kind of stepping into this arena? And actually there was a really positive kind of take on it from both the swimmers and the triathletes. And I did really work so hard for that kind of over 6 to 8 weeks, where I just swam and tried to see how quick I could get. And I just wanted to kind of not look stupid in that as well, and actually to go and nearly win the event. It was obviously so close, and to get quite close to my best ever time, I was just really surprised by. And I actually think by doing that just set me up so well for the rest of the season. So at the time it was something I was like, should I really do this? And actually I'm really glad that I did.
The one thing I really do want to talk a little bit about 70.3 hours, because I really think that your performance was like just incredible. And the thing to me that made it so incredible was the fact that you literally led from the gun. You did that entire performance. You were the fastest swim, bike, runner without anybody pushing you. Like, talk to me about it. Was it you just, were you following your numbers? Were you pushing hard? Do you think you could have gone faster if somebody was challenging you? Like, it was, if Flora Duffy hadn't won a gold medal, I argued with myself so much about female performance of the year. It was you and Flora, and I ultimately gave it to Flora because of Flora and the Olympics. But I lost my mind watching you race 70.3 miles. I have had so many conversations with people. So the opportunity to find out from you, like, how it went is too good to pass up. So tell me about it.
Yeah, I think the whole day almost kind of was just one of those days, but everything came together. It almost was like a out of body experience, because I was just, everything that we had set out and planned to do, which was like, in a dream scenario, if this pans out like this, then this is what you need to do. And it was just playing out like that the whole day, where obviously led out the swim, had a decent gap, a bigger gap than maybe we had anticipated. And then on the bike just felt super strong, was able to open up the gaps. And then when I just got on the run, and we kind of said, if you get on the run with a big gap, then we felt quite confident about my run ability at the time, but we just never thought it maybe would actually pay out like that. So I just felt really strong the whole day. And if I ever get another day like that again in my career, then that would be amazing. Because,
what a run it was. It was, I still remember watching, and it was like middle of the night here or something crazy. And I was just like, Lucy is killing it. And then when the final results come up and you had, like, you know, Ginny Metzler and that, who are actually battling, and you were minutes clear of them. It was just, it was honestly, it was a delight to watch. Reece, what was your emotions like that day? What was it like watching that unfold? What were you going through?
Oh, it's like hell on earth when Lucy races for me, because I'm always like, I'm down there race morning, all the nervous energy before the start. Once the gun goes off, I know there's nothing more I can do. It's in the hands of the gods, so to speak. So I'm always like, okay, whatever will be. But there was one point where you'd led out the swim and it was a split transition. So we had to get on an American school bus to the town centre from the swim. And on the bus, everyone's Wi-Fi was dropping in and out of the live tracker. And all of a sudden, I hear everyone on the bus like, gasp. And I was like, what's happened? I'm talking to the woman next to me like, has something happened? And Lucy had dropped off of the live tracker, but she hadn't gone through one of the splits. And I'm thinking, oh no, she's got a puncture, or she's gone wrong, or like, I'm just thinking the worst. And then she loaded up her phone and put the live tracker. And just at that moment, actually, they were filming you live out the bike course. So I knew you was okay. So that was a heart in mouth moment. But pretty much after that, once I could just see the gaps were going up and up and up. And obviously I'd been witnessing firsthand how amazing you were training. I knew that once you got on that run, you were going to absolutely smash it, because she was just running so phenomenally well before that it was, barring stomach issues or something terrible happening, she was going to win that day. And when I first saw you, you looked really relaxed, super cool, and just had a massive gap. So I could finally start relaxing, I guess, when you were probably about 5K into the run, and then I chilled out. And
one of the things I get really curious about talking with the incredible athletes is that moment after that, you've finished the race, you've got the title, you've been to the presentation. What's the next couple of hours like? What's that? Is it? I spoke to Christian about. He's talking about relief. Like, what was it like for you after you've done it? Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah, there's definitely relief is definitely one of the right words. So particularly after, obviously, since 2017, I've been second at World Championships, and there's a part of me that was like, am I never going to crack this? Am I always going to be the bridesmaid? And I knew that I'm not about that. Like, I'm always, every race I do, I want to win. So for me, crossing that line, obviously there was so much emotion to finally win, and also just to win it in the way that I did. I feel like whenever I've maybe won races before or had good performances before, there's always been something that someone can critique. Oh, well, she wasn't the fastest on this. Maybe she only won because first swim. And it was like, on that day, I just felt like I proved that I can swim, bike and run. And definitely the biggest question mark has always been around my run ability. And I feel like we've always seen it in training, what I'm capable of, but it had never come together in a race before. So a big part of that was, definitely relief. And obviously we were super happy. And I'm normally, after a world champs, I'm like, right, what's next? Is it off season? Are we going to celebrate? Is there going to be more racing? Which obviously there was a few more races. But yeah, I would say relief is the perfect way to describe it.
Reece, have you noticed a change in Lucy since she's got that world title? Like, has she changed as an athlete?
No, I don't think so. I think she's always been super driven. You've been a champion in many different things throughout your life. It's just now you're a world champion. But I guess when you're relatively in a smaller bubble, like when we were swimmers, you were county champion, then you were regional champion. It's always that, well, what can I do to improve? How do I become a national champion when you're a regional champion? And now you're a world champion. Your goal is just, well, how do I go sub 8 hours, or how do I go even quicker? How do I win the Ironman World Championships? There's always bigger goals, and Lucy's always super driven towards those.
Do you feel a difference, Lucy? Does the title give you a confidence that you maybe didn't have before? Is the self-belief still the same?
Yeah, I've always had a huge amount of self-belief. And like I said, every race I go into, it doesn't matter whether I was the complete underdog or really new to the sport, I always was going to try and win the race. So that hasn't changed. But I think one of the nicest things is everyone can understand what a world champion is. So in our country, triathlon is a relatively small sport, particularly the long distance. We pretty much get zero recognition in our country for what we do. So it is nice to be able to say to someone, oh, I'm a world champion in what I do. When I was saying, oh, I'm the world silver medalist, it's like not quite as good. So to be able to be like, yeah, I'm a world champion in what I do. And I think quite often when maybe we're just out and about, people would go, what, you don't look like you'd be a world champion. So it is quite nice to just finally have that title. But I mean, day to day, nothing's really changed. We get home and our dog doesn't care whether you're a world champion. She only cares if we feed her and take her for a walk. So
there's a good question, Reece. Has Lucy ever used the I'm world champion as an excuse to get out of walking the dog or doing the washing up or something? Has that come up yet?
I think so. Yeah, not to all the dogs. You enjoy doing that, but certainly with other things. Yeah, like
cleaning,
hanging washing up. She's like, well, I'm world champion, so I'm not doing it. So
I feel like you're the world champion though, really, in terms of me being your slave. But
no, I'm just very good at not being good at doing washing. So in the end, you say, well, leave it because you're rubbish at it. So
you could also, Reece, you could also use it and say, well, you are a world champion. You are, obviously world class at this. So there you go. You're getting the best. There you go. You could reverse it.
Superior to me in every regard, including washing. So.
We've just seen the announcement of the PTO Tour. That means we now have 2 Ironman World Championships this year, 70.3 World Championships, the Collins Cup, the 2 PTO Tour races, and Sub8. How do you approach a year like 2022? Do you plan on doing everything? And if you have to pick some over others, how do you make those choices?
Oh, good question. I think the answer to that is don't know yet.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty much just dissecting this season down into 2 parts. And the first part is Utah and Sub8, because they're both within a month of each other, which is a headache to balance in itself. And then after that, I don't think we've made any plans. We're just going to see where we're at after that and worry about it then.
Yeah, it's always very difficult to know how you're going to feel at different points in the season. And obviously at the beginning of the year, you're super fresh. You're like, yeah, I want to do everything. I want to go and win every race. But in reality, you do get to points in the season where you are actually really tired and maybe you do need a bit of a break mid-season to get you ready for the second half of the year. So it's definitely going to be an exciting year. It's going to be a pretty hectic year with the calendar that's on offer. But I mean, it's great for the sport of triathlon to have so many big opportunities to race. So there's definitely no complaints, but it's going to be a headache for not just me and Reece, but obviously Dan as well, to try and balance the training schedule and make the race calendar work.
I want to talk about Sub8 a little bit because me and James are obviously pretty big fans of the whole project, and we're very excited to see you go out there and smash it. How are you planning on attacking it? How's the preparation going? Any plans on who you're going to get as paces? Any little tidbits you want to give our audience? How's it all going? How's the Sub8 preparation going?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. I think the main thing that I really wanted to try and consider with my team is obviously the fastest time ever over the distance is by Chrissy Wellington, who's obviously a British athlete. So I really wanted to try and have an all-British team of women, so that we almost keep that time within Great Britain. So most of my team are Brits at the moment. It's not fully confirmed yet, but I think the biggest element of the day has without a doubt got to be the bike section. That's where the most time gains are going to be made. So the least amount of energy I can use on that part and then be able to run quick off the bike is obviously the key part. Managing the fatigue from St. George is going to be a big factor as well. But I'm hoping if we plan it right, we get our tactics right, it should hopefully be the easiest full distance I've ever done. It should be the shortest day of a full distance I've ever done. But without a doubt, there's still a lot to consider in terms of pacemakers, tactics, equipment choices, which again is another big headache for us, but it's super exciting. And yeah, we've obviously got to get through Utah and St. George first, but yeah, we're excited for that project.
I think we've been tapping on the resources of all of our sponsors as well, and all of the community of scientists that we know. We're basically just going all out. But there's been a big crossover with Utah and Sub8, so found some little advantages that will also help you in Utah, but no doubt help in Sub8. And like Lucy said, the bike element is the crucial part of that Sub8. Hopefully you can just get around on that bike course going as quick as you've ever gone, but with the least amount of energy burnt, so that you can execute the run afterwards. And that's basically what all of the testing and training will be geared towards.
I know that a pacer who should not be named, who is working with Ali Brownlee, was at a track session with them testing out their setup for the race. And they said that trying to hold the 50 odd K an hour, even in the pace line, was the hardest bike ride they'd ever done in their entire life. I think people who are saying that this bike ride is going to be easy are underestimating the requirements of riding at that speed, whether you're in a pack or not. Like it's very fascinating how it's all going to unfold. I think it's going to be exciting. Reece, how about you? 2022, what are your goals? Is it hard to set big goals for yourself, being the LCB #1 supporter? Like, how do you balance being the pro triathlete and then also being the coach / supporter of Lucy?
Yeah, that's a question that always changes every year, because every year Lucy gets bigger and does better things, and the demands on her time changes. When we first set out, we were both age groupers, and our time was equally split between me training and Lucy training. And then Lucy became professional, so it was a little bit more geared towards her. Then I became professional, but Lucy won or came second at the World Championship, so it was almost geared towards her a little bit more. And then all of a sudden she starts getting some amazing sponsorship deals, which thankfully we have a really good manager now who deals with all of that. But the amount of administration that comes with Lucy's time was huge, so much so that someone needed to do it, and if you was doing it all day, you would never train, you'd just be answering emails all day. So I took that upon myself to do that, and last year, or no, the year before last, we took on someone to finally do that. And now hopefully I should have a little bit more time to do some of my own racing. My schedule will always try and be in tune with Lucy's, because we do bounce off each other really well in training. There's been times, particularly last year, where Lucy was at her absolute fittest and I was at my absolute fattest, and it just didn't work because I couldn't train with Lucy. She was just running rings around me, which arguably doesn't help you, because normally you have someone to push
I did
you.
quite enjoy it though.
Yeah, you did. So yeah, we basically have both had a nice mental reset after after Abu Dhabi for you, and we're both fresh, ready, and we're pretty much on the same page now. We're both getting back into fitness, and hopefully this year I'll have some good races. Yet to confirm which ones I'm definitely going to be doing, but all throughout the year. But I'm definitely going to be doing the 70.3 Lanzarote here and the Ironman Lanzarote here, which I've done twice before. So definitely picked the hardest one of the whole circuit to do, but that motivates me to get super fit.
Lucy, you touched on a little bit before about starting to dabble with short course. I know we've all heard the talk about trying to go to Paris 2024 Olympics. How motivating is the thought of racing for Team GB at the Olympics for you?
Yeah, it definitely is a big motivating factor. And obviously coming from a swimming background where the ultimate goal is the Olympic Games, and it always had been my ultimate goal from around 8-9 years old. So there's always this big pull to go and compete in the Olympics. And I guess there's added motivation that we have got the strength and depth like no other nation in triathlon. And obviously that will just make it that bit harder. But I always have loved a big challenge. So I guess if it was easy, I probably wouldn't be maybe appealed to doing it, but because it is such a big challenge, it definitely draws me in. Obviously, this year is going to be super tough to fit in any short course racing, but we'll have to see how the season pans out. And then at the end of this year, kind of make some decisions whether that's the route I really want to go down. And yeah, it's a big kind of question mark at the moment, but I guess I can't really think about it too much this year with everything else that's going on. But it definitely still does excite me.
One of the things I find curious, and I discussed this with Macca a few months ago when we were talking about his attempt to go to the Olympics, and I mean, we saw last year the stress, the turmoil, the emotions around athletes not getting picked for the Olympics. As a long course professional, you've basically got full control over the races you do. You can say, I want to go to this race as long as I qualify for Kona, I can go. Are you worried about suddenly having that control taken out of your hands? That we've heard a lot about the bureaucracy and the problems with bureaucracy in a lot of the federations. Like, is that, giving up that control something that you're worried about, or have you not really thought about that yet? Or
I probably just wouldn't give up control. It's definitely not something I like. I think that was maybe one of the reasons I came out of swimming, because you were very much told what you had to do. And obviously I do love the freedom of the long distance racing, that we can pick where and when we want to race. We're not being told you must go and do this, you must attend this training camp and everything like that. So that is definitely something that is difficult, and obviously I would have to consider, particularly when we have got such a strong nation. So there is a lot more kind of regulation of you would need it to be required to do this. So yeah, I guess it's another factor to consider, and I do love the freedom of long course racing, so that kind of definitely would always keep me in long course, just because I do love that freedom.
For you, Reece, as Lucy's husband, like, is that something that you worry about? Like, are you worried about, for example, Taylor Spivey? I interviewed Taylor last year. She was really upset about not being picked for the American team. Like, is that something that you worry about, Reece?
Lucy not being picked for the team,
or more the bullshit that goes along sometimes with there's not just a clear line in the sand of what it takes to qualify. There's always this. They've got their criteria that they sort of make up on the spot, it sometimes seems, and maybe there's an element of unfairness or something. Like, just as I said, things being out of control, not out of your control.
Yeah, I guess so. I think arguably, though, they do set out far enough in advance the qualification process. So we should never be in a position where we didn't know that you needed to go and do X, Y, Z racing. They are quite good at telling us what you need to do. The process of what they set out isn't necessarily what I would say is the most ideal, when you've got athletes flying all around the world 2 months before the actual Olympic Games to try and get enough points to qualify. Is that in the best interest of the actual athlete and the nation? Arguably not, but that's not for me to decide. Ultimately, all the athletes are in the same boat as well, so I don't think they should and can make exceptions for any athletes regardless. I think it's fair that everyone's on the same level playing field. That said, if you've got an athlete like Lucy, who clearly has potential in short course but hasn't got the experience, one of the big difficulties we're facing is that she just can't get on any start line, because the depth of the British field is so strong that Lucy's continually on the waiting list. And even when she's on the waiting list, that sometimes only means, like in Leeds, she only got 10 days notice. Abu Dhabi, we were told, absolutely not, you'll never get on that start list because everyone's on it. And then all of a sudden she's on it. I think that process needs to be made better, because it's difficult enough to plan for a race if you were just doing short course. But when you're trying to manage that around a busy long course schedule, it's impossible to do if you don't have a clear race and date set. And unfortunately, we still won't have that. I don't know if you'll actually get any short course racing this year, but this year, I don't think you should focus on it anyway. I think it all needs to be concentrated on the long course goals. Arguably, that might be too late to actually tackle the Olympics if you don't do any short course racing this year, because the qualification window would have already started at the end of this year for 2024. But all that kind of stuff is a little bit, we don't stress about that kind of thing. We just do what we can do and take each step at a time. Hopefully, by the end of this year, you're in a position where you can make a decision of short course or long course, and hopefully the door's not closed for long course, but we can't control that. So we just go with whatever the situation is at the time.
Well, I hope to get to see you race some short course, because the impact you had on that Leeds race was like very noticeable. You like, your fifth alone was very impressive, but the actual impact of you being in the race, it completely shifted the dynamic there. And I love that. I love, we sort of saw the status quo sort of change a little bit in that race. And again, no bias, but having Maya win obviously was very good. We're very happy about that. But yeah, it was. I'm hope to see you race some more short course stuff, because you do have an impact on those races. As a team, what's a successful 2022 look like for both of you?
I guess it goes back to what we said before. We're breaking it down into 2 seasons basically. So first half of the season for you would be win Utah and go sub-8. For me would be to win Ironman Lanzarote, and then we're literally treating the second half of the season as another season. Not to mention the fact that there's Kona in there as well, which has always been Lucy's ultimate goal. All of these, the World Championships in Utah is amazing, Sub8 is amazing, but I think Kona is in the heart of our sport. So there will be that at some point this year as well. But yeah, that's such a big goal and such a distraction from 2 massive goals that are more pressing, that we've literally just put a wall down the middle of the season and said we'll deal with that afterwards.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really important for us to just pace ourselves through the year, so we're not kind of absolutely smashing ourselves in January, because we still appreciate it's going to be a really long season. And actually a big success would be if at the end of the year we're not burnt out, we still love triathlon and we still love what we're doing, which was the main reason we came into this sport, was just to enjoy what we're doing. And so far we've been able to do that. So I think that's kind of the key thing we always stick by.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. It's been, we always appreciate getting your generosity. So, and I'm sure our audience love it. If people want to find out more, if they don't already, where can people find you guys online?
We're trying to kind of keep our YouTube channel going. So that's Team CharlesBarclay on YouTube. And we've probably been a bit more quiet on Instagram as we're getting back into training. But yeah, we're on Instagram as well. So yeah, definitely follow us.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Good luck with everything coming up this year for both of you. I'm sure everybody's going to be watching along, excited to see you potentially win a few world titles and go under 8 hours and all that sort of stuff. And Reece get a Lanzarote title would be fantastic. So, guys, thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
James Bale, welcome back to the podcast.
Good work,
how'd you enjoy that, mate?
Yeah, mate, that was a fantastic interview. I loved it. I think your skills as an interviewer have gone from strength to strength. I feel like, you're kind of my Padawan, and I'm sort of allowing you to run free now.
It worked out well, because obviously Reece is my coach, so we had a coach athlete debrief, and then Lucy popped in and we just had a bit of a chat. So it was good fun. They're 2 very, very lovely people, and like I think I did geek out a little bit when I was like actually going to talk to Lucy about that 70.3 race. Like I think I mean, you haven't heard it. People have. It's like, I don't want to dwell on what's happened. I want to talk to you about what's coming. Yeah. But I have to talk to you about that race, because that race was phenomenal. And yeah, it was good. Really good chat there. Like I said, great athletes. And yeah, what's next, James Bale?
Welcome to the down low on the PTO. Oh, mate, what's happened?
I know. We have been. I don't think I've been tagged in more things or sent more private messages on Instagram about something in a long time. I saw we had a few people like tagging MX, and I was like, did Sam say this stuff on our podcast? Because you did that interview with Sam. Did Sam say the stuff?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He did. It was very much the same spirit and message. I'm going to start by referencing a different podcast, though, because there's a formal quote that the PTO themselves...
An own goal, if you will.
Yeah. So the PTO, on the 4th of January 2022, on their Instagram page, they posted a quote from the Triathlon Taran podcast. And it was a quote from Sam Renouf, who's the PTO CEO. And he said, start quote, "We're going to price age group entries significantly lower than what you see in the market, because we don't like that. The sport is essentially on the back of its most loyal fans," end quote. Now, that at the time I saw that, and I related back to what Sam had said on the MX podcast, and I was like, all power to the PTO. They're going to come in, and a sport that is very expensive and does have a barrier to entry for a lot of people. I'm a raging socialist at heart, mate. I want to see this fantastic sport accessible to everybody. And I thought we were going to see some really high quality championship style racing in the, in the model of what you see from Ironman and what you see from Challenge, and brought down to a price point that's more like, your sort of mid-tier local
race,
unbranded 70.3. How I pay £350 to £400 for a 70.3 in the UK, whereas if I'm going to race something like the Cotswolds middle distance, which is an unbranded middle distance 70.3 race, then I'll pay £120.
Did you intentionally pick one that had cock in it? Like, is that an accident or just the
Cotswolds? Cotswolds, not Cotswolds. Cotswolds. It's a place. In fact, it's actually a place where I have a small portion of land that I'm a lord of.
Oh, is that where your lordship is? That's where you're the lord. You're a lord. Actually.
Yeah. So I was thinking, it's going to be more like your local kind of race cost. Now, on the 25th of January 2022, I got an email from the PTO, as did many other subscribers to the PTO's mailing list, with the registration opening up for their races and their championship events across the world. I clicked on them all, hurriedly, excited to see what I was going to find, and the price points are as follows. They've released 3 so far, and for the Canadian Open, for the 25 kilometer race, it's $155 US. For the 100 kilometer race, it's $399 US, and that's the early bird pricing. The Collins Cup for the 100 kilometer race, it's $335 euros. So 335 euros, going up to 375 euros from May the 1st. And then in Dallas for the 25 kilometer, again, it's $155 US, and the 100 kilometers is $399 US. And they've yet to release the costing for the rest. Now, we've had a lot of people contact us on and off various social media platforms and emails saying, we thought this was going to be cheaper, because that's very much in line with what I would pay. This is people saying to us what I would pay for an Ironman race or a challenge race. And, it's out of line with what they said earlier in the month in that post. It's not cheaper. It's not a more accessible price. It's not lowering the barrier to entry.
No.
Now,
James, asterisk, when compared to a championship event hosted by Ironman, that's when apparently is what they're trying to compare it to, isn't it? That's their...
Yeah, well, I mean...
Anything you have to put an asterisk next to, I think, is problematic too. Like, that's just...
Yeah, it's a shame. Now, my problem, I'm going to get my little problem with it out of the way, and then I'll let you have you, because I know that we've got very similar concerns, but you've also got some extra points that you raised before we started recording, which are very valid, and I'm not going to steal from you. Putting out a post sort of stating the entry cost will be significantly lower than the market before publishing a cost that is the same as the standard 70.3, I think is a bit of a fail. From the outside, it kind of looks like they're not giving anyone who didn't have access to the sport because of cost beforehand access to the sport. The cost is the same. Ultimately, giving more for the standard price doesn't benefit those that cannot afford the standard price, only those that can. The barrier to entry is still there for those that struggle to save and try to pay for races. They just sit there now seeing those that can afford it get more for their money. It's not opening up anything. It's just rewarding those that are already there. Now, couldn't there be like a very basic package of entry where you just get to race and you don't get any of the other bells and whistles that we've been told come with it?
You see...
Have a word, Tim?
I feel like if they had have said, we're doing age group racing, and then they announced the prices and these were the prices, nobody would have batted an eyelid.
Totally agree.
It would have been like, yep, par for the course.
That's the price of triathlon.
That's the price of triathlon, no problem. The fact that there's been all this stuff coming out saying it's going to be significantly cheaper, it's not our business model. Our business model isn't about age group revenue. It's
they came in like Karl Marx.
We're sick of. What does it say? We're sick of. We don't like that the sport is essentially on the backs of its most loyal fans. Now, the thing that I thought about this a lot. I had a 4K swim today, and I was thinking about this a lot because at first I was a bit like, oh, look, it's not like they've not intent, like it's not like they've gone, we're going to trick everybody. Like, I don't think this has been there's never been a malice intent or anything. I think this is maybe something's come up, or they've thought they could price something different, and then there's an unexpected cost or something like that. But what really gets me about this, and I'm going to try to stay as level-headed, and I'm going to try not to swear because I know people don't like when I swear too much, is that over the last 2 years, we have heard this ongoing narrative within the sport of triathlon about the poor professional athletes. The poor professional athletes are doing it so tough. Their races have been cancelled. Their ability to earn an income has been diminished. And then the PTO pops up and starts handing out money for what appears almost nothing. They created a ranking system based on results. Prior to this even existing, they've told us how many millions of dollars that they've given away. And then you hear about them talking about these new races with millions of dollars of prize purses and millions of dollars and all the money that they're given to the sport. It's not just professional triathletes that have been impacted by the pandemic. I mean, running MX endurance, I have seen so many people have to walk away from triathlon altogether because they can't afford it, because they lost their job because of the pandemic. I have lost count of how many people's memberships I've had to just put a freeze. We made a blanket rule with MX endurance that anybody who was adversely affected by the pandemic, we weren't going to punish them because they were doing it tough. There's been so many people who've done it tough at certain points during the pandemic. We've had to freeze their membership price, etc. There's been so many people I've heard about. I've heard individual stories about people not being able to buy running shoes or not being able to afford race injuries because of what's happened during COVID. So to have this race talking about, we've got millions of dollars we're giving to professional athletes after already giving them millions of dollars. And, oh, that's right. You rich amateur triathletes, because we all know that triathlon is this rich sport. I'm telling you, it isn't, based on my work with MX Endurance. You are going to be the ones that pay the price for that. That's how it seems, at least. I understand that's probably not what it is. I choose to believe that they're not putting the prices this way to cover the price, but I'm purely talking about the messaging of it. The messaging of it seems like we have to give all this money to the poor professional athletes, but we're going to make you guys pay for it. And the reality is that this sport currently, and I hope it changes, if they were to cancel professional racing tomorrow, and God, I hope they don't, the sport would continue. Our podcast would have a lot less to talk about, James Bell. We'd probably be talking about ourselves at the start a lot, but the sport would continue. Ironman would continue to put on races. Challenge would continue to put on races. People would sign up for their Ironman. They'd do it. They'd tell their friends. They'd get the tattoo. They'd leave. The sport would continue. If you were to keep the pro racing and take away the age group racing, the sport would not exist, because it is not yet at a point where it can be sufficiently supported by things like sponsorship and broadcast. It's just not possible. And I think we shouldn't be surprised, should we? This is an organization. It's called the Professional Triathletes Organization. So I'm not shocked to hear that they're putting the pros first. They say it. They're very open about it. I guess it is just that somewhere along the line, we've all started to think that they care about the amateurs as well. And I'm not saying that they don't, but it doesn't. I guess it doesn't feel like that at the moment, because it just feels like, yet again, because everybody thinks that you do triathlon, you're rich. I know for a fact. I see the things. I see people. I see it. I know it. It's not the case. And to have people paying $400 to do a 100-kilometer race, it doesn't pass the pub test, mate, to me. Like, that's the thing. And again, if all of this other stuff hadn't been said, and again, I completely get, I do not think that the PTO intended to come out and lie to us. I don't think that's their intention, but it's just unfortunate how the message has gone from, we're sick of it being on the backs of the most loyal fans, to now it's back on the backs of the most loyal fans. But
is it though? I mean, even as you're saying,
it feels like it is, mate. It feels like it is.
I hear what you're saying, but what I mean is, they're not even. How many people are going to compete? They're not even going to make that much. It's not like it's going to make or break their business model, because they, over the last year and a bit, last 2 years, they've just gone, every now and again, they've just gone, oh yeah, COVID's hit. We just put another few million into the pro prize fund because, everyone's struggling. And now they're going to make, what? I don't know, a few $100,000 off the back of one of these races from age groupers. It's like, how much difference does that make, particularly? So, yeah, I don't know. The optics.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
So is it on the backs? I'm not saying it's. That's not a good point I'm making. It makes it. I mean, in my mind, even a little bit worse. It's a bit Trumpian.
And this is the thing, though, James. Is like, it actually. I'm upset that I have to. I don't want to have to be having this chat with you. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's. I'm genuinely. I'm a bit disappointed by it. And it's because
yeah,
I think we both see the value of what they do. Like we are both people who want the sport to be, and I just, it just feels like an own goal to me. Like something that if they just hadn't have done this little thing at the start, none of this would have happened. And because it has, and even things like I was watching the social media because there's been a lot of people who have much stronger opinions than we do. And it's the copy paste response as well. Like that's the thing. You can tell that they're just like, okay, we just need to let this settle down a bit before we really.
I mean, and like you're saying, we like what the PTO do. We got a good relationship with them. We like the people there. I mean, Sam and Jane and Jamie, they're all good people, and their hearts are very much in the right place and coming from a place of wanting to make the sport better. So, it's just we've had so much feedback on this that it would be remiss of us not to mention it on the podcast. Now, the PTO's response to this has been the price comparison we're going for is the equivalent to a major international sports event, world champs, etc. Because this is the scale of the event we'll be putting on, not just from the pro perspective, which with all the fees included are $600 to $700 USD. Plus, when you look at everything included, it should hopefully seem more reasonable. PTO is covering all active fees, so there isn't that additional kick out at the end. Finisher picks included as standard for all competitors, usually about $50. The quality of the race pack is genuinely awesome, as well as the security of 100% COVID refund policy, so no risk. Cool, you get more for your money, but the money is still here. So this person that couldn't afford to get it can't afford to get it still. He just sees those that can, or him or her see those that can getting it and getting more for their money and getting a better deal. And it's a shame. I was really hoping we were going to see some, I don't know, put a package out where each open has the first 300 slots for first come first serve at $100 or something.
I just can't. I don't want to even say we're not just talking about this because of the people that got in contact with us. Like I genuinely have, like I've had my own thoughts about it, and I think I said to you, I want to save what I have to say until this, and like I've thought about this for 3 days. Like I've been honestly thinking about this, and I've flip-flopped around a lot about it. But to me, it really just does feel a bit, and I don't want to use the term tone deaf because it's like everything that they've been coming out saying is about how we know pro triathlon has been doing it tough. We're here to help. And then in the middle of this ongoing horrible pandemic that we are stuck in, it just feels like, well, not for you guys. You guys, you can keep paying. I don't even know how to verbalize it. What I'm trying. It's just it feels so misaligned to me, and that's what I think I struggle with the most. Is like again, I have no race entries cost. I understand there are a lot of expenses that go into road closures, insurance, security. The equipment to put on an event, the time. I understand all of that stuff. It's just I wish that they hadn't have come out and said, like, again, yes, it's cheaper, asterisk, compared to other international. That's nobody. As soon as you have to put an asterisk on something, if there's an asterisk, just don't say it. Just leave that part out.
And also, comparing an event that's open for everybody to enter is very different. You can't compare that to Kona, where if you've gone out to qualify for Kona and got yourself a Kona spot, you know what you're getting yourself in for and the price that you are going to pay, which is substantial. But just a race that you can enter doesn't. I mean, if let's say in this open tour you had to achieve certain speed or placing in one of the opens to be able to qualify to race at the Collins Cup as an age grouper. And then the Collins Cup was the expensive one because you'd gone and got that slot for yourself. Then that would be like, it's banging. But come on, give people the chance to race these races for $150 or €150 or something. Come on, what are you going to do? You ain't going to lose that much money. You appear to have been banding around a huge amount of money for the last 2 years for all these pros. So like,
exactly, that's exactly
be a drop
my
in
point.
the ocean what the age group is going to bring.
That's my point. I guess you've come to it. I think we're at the same point, just like in different ways. Is exactly they've banded around all this money, and this seems like it was actually going to be such an insignificant amount in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, like if what my understanding is the whole point of putting the age group racing on was to get more people there, so that when it's being televised, is that it's packed.
Yeah.
So then again, you'd assume that the best way to do that was make the race $50, cover your insurance. Insurance, and then come and race. And then because we're not actually that fussed about the race. We want you there on the Sunday to make it look epic. We want it to be pimped out,
and to tell the stories online. To go online and say, I had a fucking brilliant race at the PTO Championship event, wherever it is, and it was fantastic. And I couldn't believe they let the entry fee was only $100, and I got to spend the whole weekend watching the pros race, and it was brilliant, and I love it. Whereas what's happening now is the exact opposite of that. The race hasn't even happened. People haven't even had the chance to line up, and there's already negativity on social media with people going, "Oh my god, it's just the same. You sent me that meme, and I laughed for about 10 minutes. You know, it's just the same." And it's like, no.
I know. Again, like I said, it just feels like it could have been. Again, I don't want to. I am. Yeah, I don't want to come across as like overly negative, because I really appreciate everything that PTO does. I'm a big fan of everything they do. I think they're great people. I know they have the best of intentions. It does just feel like, yeah. And to be honest, I also think that these guys, they might respond to this. They might address, like they might reevaluate things. I'm not sure. I've not heard anything. I have absolutely nothing to base that on. But one thing I do really respect about the PTO is they are extremely receptive to feedback, and they're obviously hearing this. So
yeah, Sam's already listening, man, and he's gonna
boys, come on, give us a break. And I don't want to. I'm so it's very difficult to discuss this, because I don't want to sound like I'm just like, this sucks, because
no.
Yeah, it's hard, mate. It's a hard thing to.
Yeah, because it's easy. It's easy to be the negative ones, isn't it? And to just be like, "Oh, triathlon rubbish. Everything that changes, everything that's different is rubbish," and that's not the case. We just, there's a dichotomy between what was said and what was done, and it's a
yeah. That's and look, to be honest, I would still enter some of these races. To be honest, if there was one in Sydney, I would enter it, regard like the price point. And again, I'm in a position where I can afford to enter.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point as well. I'm not talking for me. Because I can enter one of these races if I want to, that's just the draw of it. But there are people out there that really struggle and I would like to see the sport more open for more people.
James Bell, you ready for me to do a segue? Because I think I've got a good one up my sleeve. When MX Endurance was founded many, many years ago, almost 10 years ago, actually, one of the guiding principles around MX Endurance was power in numbers. And that is what we try to do at MX Endurance. The more members we have at MX, the better we are able to access deals like we have with Mortan, like we have with Magic 5, like we have with today's plan. Because there's enough of us, we're able to leverage that and get good prices on things. So if you are sitting there going, I wouldn't mind making the sport of triathlon a little bit cheaper, and getting some bonus content like a bonus monthly episode with Christopher McCormack that we record once a month, head to mxendurance.com/podcast, where you can come and join us and you can help us grow our numbers, so we can go to companies like the PTO and Ironman and say, hey, there's 5,000 of us. Give us a cheaper race entry, and let's show them power in numbers. Little as $3.40 a month if you sign up for an annual plan, of $49 a year. Helps us keep doing the podcast, spreading the word about what's happening, makes the sport easier and more achievable and more affordable for you too. James Bell, was that a good segue? Did I do a good job there, or was it
that was
taking advantage of her?
That was a banging segue, because the truth is there, man. MX Endurance is incredible value for its members. It's not. We don't take advantage of our members, because we want to. It's inclusivity is the most important thing. It's the backbone of MX Endurance, really.
Exactly. So if people want to find out other things about MX Endurance, James Bell, where do they need to go?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app, and it really helps the show out. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend and help us grow the podcast. If you've got any suggestions, guests, or anything you'd like us to talk about, or any comments about topics we've covered this week, then send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
This is the week that people have been making the most of all of that. My social media, the emails have been popping off. So thank you to everybody who did email in. I'd also like to say thank you to the MX guys, because there's been a lot of very sophisticated discussion around this, and that's the thing I like, is that it's not just people bagging on it. It's actually a discussion. And I mean, about a lot of things, we had a good discussion around the Ali Brownlee, Jonathan Brownlee BMC thing. It's good, sophisticated, civil conversation. So yeah, thanks to everybody who has been in contact this week. Again, I'm sure if you've gotten this far, it's the first time listening. I hope you enjoy it. We are gearing up for a big year. Come join us in St. George. It'll be fun, even if you're not a member. It's open to everybody. We'll have a website up probably next week where people can come and sign up. So James Bale, until next week, talk to you later, mate.
Done and done. Speak to you later, mate.